There we are. I can move it a little bit. Good morning. It is 8:59, so we are starting just a little bit early to make sure that we didn't have any technical difficulties like we did 2 weeks ago. So glad to see that we're not having those issues this morning. We'll give everyone a second to sign on since it's not officially 9. Just want to remind everyone of HAR Engage. If you haven't yet registered for HAR Engage, it is HAR's real estate conference. We have it every year. It's coming up in October, and actually right now through October 1st, they do have special pricing. So it's a little bit lower ticket pricing than it will be once it gets closer to the event date. So if you haven't registered for HAR Engage yet, I would definitely recommend that you go to engage.har.com and check out all the speakers that we have coming. We are going to have some great people, Terry Watson, Brad Inman, a lot of industry leaders coming to this event. So check that out, engage.har.com. All right, so we'll give it right till 9 o'clock and then we'll get started. All right, it's 9. So we're going to get going. We have Shawn Dauphine with us this morning. Welcome. Thank you so much for joining us. Shawn, if you want to just introduce yourself to everybody.
Yes, I'm Shawn Dauphine, and I'm the director of MLS here at HAR. Primarily oversee the agreement with CoreLogic, who operates the Matrix and Realist systems. I also work with Super directly and providing the lockbox system, and our department also handles quality assurance. So some of you may have received a correction notice over the years, and so we have a department that looks at cleaning up the data, making sure that it's timely and accurate. We also work with the HAR.com in-house development team to develop and deliver HR.com Platinum tools to members and integration with Matrix on those systems.
Awesome, thank you. So before we really talk about Matrix or tools or any of that stuff, I wanted to touch on an issue that we've kind of been hearing a lot about, and that is wire fraud. If you could kind of share with us any insight on that, and maybe, you know, what members can do to protect their clients.
Yeah, no, we've been hearing a lot about this on a national level, and FBI statistics show a real uptick in wire fraud across the country, but more concerning is just locally here. We've been getting a lot more complaints into the MLS office about this happening locally with other brokers. And what's more concerning is really that we believe that there may be obtaining some information from the MLS to get this fraud started. Specifically, we're talking about the title company that a listing agent may put in the MLS, and also the fact of who is representing the buyer. So the criminal may look and find, you know, who's the title company, who's representing the buyer, and they'll use those pieces of information to obtain additional information about the buyer and then perpetrate a fraud. And so, you know, we're working with the FBI here locally to try to address the issue. And some of the things that we're asking is for listing agents to not put the title company into the remarks. Okay. And so we have a meeting with the MLS advisory group this week, and we'll be discussing these issues. So they'll likely will make a rule that would prohibit putting the title company into the MLS remarks, potentially not displaying who the buyer's agent is while the listing is in pending status. It would obviously display once it's sold. At that point, there's no fraud committed. And potentially looking at a mandatory password for MLS. It's been a while since we've required a password change. Any member is free to go change their password anytime they like, and we encourage that, but we haven't done a mandatory one in a while, so that's something we'll be looking at. I would say in terms of just protecting your client, I mean, one of the things the FBI emphasized was making sure that your client initiates the phone call to the title company for any wiring instructions, and have the title company rep read the instructions back to the client, right? And so make sure that matches any email instructions they may have received. And we would also encourage, you know, any agents that receive strange emails from title companies that they may not be working with, or even if they're working with and it looks fraudulent, send those over to HAR so we can aggregate those. And if you've been your client's been the victim of a fraud, if you report it quick enough to the FBI, there's a chance you may get the money back. So IC3.gov, that is the Internet Crimes Division's website. And they have a national database where they aggregate that, and they will also pass that on to the local FBI team here in Houston. Okay. So the key is if a client has been victim, report it quickly. And if you're aware of some fraud, whether it's been successful or not, let us know so we can kind of aggregate those.
Yeah. So that website was ic3.gov, and I will actually put that in the comment section. I'll put that there for you after we finish up, so you'll have a link to access that after today. Okay, so we actually just passed the anniversary of Hurricane Harvey, as you know. So 2 weeks ago, we had Lawrence Steen here. He's with Metro Study, and they help us kind of aggregate a lot of our, the reporting that we do and kind of give us an outlook on the industry and how we're doing and things like that. And he did mention that we should expect to see some, interesting numbers because of Hurricane Harvey here in this next month. What can you tell us what should we expect?
Well, I mean, obviously the numbers will be skewed significantly as we compare August to last August. I mean, the last month of August in 2017 when the hurricane hit there was really no activity in the market. And so, when you compare, this August to last August, you'll see a pretty extreme increase in terms of percentage in the terms of sales. So you'll see a lot of references back to 2016 for a more accurate comparison.
Okay.
And I expect, probably for August and September to see some skewed numbers. However, I do think, the market did rebound quicker than I expected last year after the hurricane. So really the statistics will probably be skewed in August and September. So if you look at, obviously we have to report the percentage increase over last year, which seems very significant, but we'll always preface that with, hey, there was a hurricane last year, here's why the numbers are skewed, and let's look back to 2016 for a more accurate comparison.
That makes perfect sense. So we get a lot of questions, speaking of Hurricane Harvey, we get a lot of questions about flood fields. We did have flood fields in Matrix. They were removed. Can you tell us more about that? Why were those removed?
Well, when Hurricane Harvey hit, I don't have to tell everybody how impactful that was to the whole city. And so HAR was looking for a way to help its members and help their clients during a time of crisis and really just to find dry properties. All right. So we scrambled when the storm was hitting. We worked with our vendor CoreLogic. We got approval from the board of directors to implement these temporary fields. Was it flooded in Harvey? Yes or no? And again, it was not a required field. It was intended to identify dry properties. Nobody ever said yes, it flooded, but they did use it as no. And so it was very helpful. The motion that the board passed was to have that in place for 3 months. And when it ended, we pulled those back. We did get some feedback from members that those were helpful, and then they wanted to see those come back. And so we brought that back to the MLS advisory group and the board of directors, and they've been discussing that for the last year. But we have not, based on legal counsel, have not, put those back into the MLS. They were never really intended to replace the seller's disclosure, which is really where that information should be.
Sure.
The information, that disclosure should be made by the seller, not really the listing agent. And so we're not going to put them in the MLS, but they're, we are recommending some other things to help. We realize it's tough for agents, right? The first thing a buyer wants to know is, did the house flood?
Of course, yeah.
And so it's a little more nuanced than just a yes or no in the MLS. Some homes may have flooded with, a little bit in the back door. Some had 10 foot of water for 3 weeks. And so there's really a difference, although you'd have to say yes on both of those. And so really want to put that onto the seller and not on the listing agents or the buyer's agents who are handing that information to a client in the MLS.
Right. And that really is going to be the best distinction. Some, like you said, they may have just gotten a little water in the back door. They may have gotten 10 feet. How do we know the difference? Well, really the seller's disclosure is going to be.
That's right. And often it's a one-on-one with the seller. Really asking neighbors in the area is probably your best resource if it flooded. Sometimes the seller's disclosure, we hope it's accurate, but it may not be as well.
Right.
There's also what's called a clue report, and this will track any insurance claims that have been filed on that home for the last 7 years. And it has to be requested by the homeowner. But if you just Google clue report, you'll see it come up, and LexisNexis is the website that a seller could go on, or a homeowner, and get that report for the last 7 years.
Okay.
There's also a FEMA report they can get from the National Flood Insurance Program that shows any FEMA filings. So, if you're going to buy a house, you might recommend that, hey, let's get this from the seller just to ensure if you think it may have flooded.
And I'll provide that link for you all as well. But you said if they just Google what?
Clue report. CLUE report, and you'll see, the first link that comes up, I believe, is LexisNexis. That's LEXISNEXIS.
Okay, perfect. So speaking of anniversaries, we're almost on the 1 year of Matrix being our sole MLS platform. So how has that been going?
It's been going well. I mean, a transition like this is always disruptive to the members and the staff, but we've got a great training staff with yourself and Rita heading up the department. We've trained, tens of thousands of agents, prior to the Matrix cutover, and for the last year during the cutover, we were still filling up classes. And so overall, it's gone pretty well. We've made, hundreds of changes since we've cut over based on member feedback that's provided to us. And we're going to continue making it a better platform, as we go forward. So I think all in all, it's tough to learn a new system, and we haven't done it for 15 years because we know how painful and difficult it is.
Sure.
We were the last account in the country on Tempo.
Yeah.
And so, now our vendor, has all of their clients cut over to a single system that they can focus on. And so we are excited about that fact.
Well, and that's great because it's, if they have multiple platforms they're trying to update and maintain and, all of that, it
spreads their
resources.
resources.
Yeah, it spreads their resources. If they just have one platform,
exactly,
they can provide one better platform.
And I would say, when we cut over to Tempo, I guess 15 years ago, I mean, we made that system, we developed it out over the course of time. And so it was a better system when we left it than it was when we started. And that's what we expect for Matrix. Matrix, there are hundreds of MLSs across the country using this system. It's got a good back end. It's solid. It's fast. And there's some things that staff can configure on our side without going to the vendor for certain changes.
Sure.
But all in all, it's been a good change.
So you said that we've had hundreds of changes since the cutover. I have a feeling that you are not exaggerating that number.
No. I mean, some of them were very small, but it's,
Can you tell us about some of those changes?
Let's say, like to the quick CMA, there were some nuances in our market that other markets didn't have. So, while Matrix is a common system across these markets, they're all configured a little bit differently. And we've had, like I said, we built Tempo for 15 years. So we had a lot of customization in that system that we wanted to port over to Matrix. So, the archive report, for example, is different than any other market in the country as far as Matrix goes. I think, we're the only MLS that I'm aware of that allows texting of listings. So, incorporating all of the tools that we had in Tempo into Matrix took some time after we cut over.
I think even how we calculate months of inventory. It's a little bit
months of
different,
inventory, so we had to write that report. All of the financial reports that you see inside of Matrix now were something that we wrote in-house because the Matrix reports were a little bit lacking. They weren't what we were used to in Tempo.
Sure.
And so we had to make those changes.
Okay. So are there any changes coming? I know there's been some talk of changes with teams and things like that. Can you tell us about some of the changes that are coming?
Yeah, one of the things we're rolling out on Friday is the ability for a team to set up their team. So they can set up a team name, and it'll have a team profile page on hr.com that will display the team leader and the team members.
Okay.
If they want to display all of the team's listings on that profile page, they can do that. They can also display the ratings of all of their team members. It's kind of an aggregated combined team rating on that profile page on hr.com.
Okay.
They will also be able to display the team name on Matrix reports. And there is some permission functionality within Matrix that the team leader can set up so that the team members can work on behalf of the team. So when they send an email from Matrix, it comes either with a team name or on behalf of the team name, depending on how they set that up.
Great. A lot more customization there for them. Right before we got started, we were talking a little bit about school boundary lines. I know there were some updates that were taking place there.
That's right. We work directly with probably 50 different school districts across Texas, representing thousands of schools. And those boundaries, not all of them change every year, but hundreds of them do change. And so we have an in-house GIS department that kind of helps draw those boundary changes up and then submits them to CoreLogic for Matrix to implement those new boundaries. So we finished all of the new boundaries for this past year. They've been submitted and they've been implemented into Matrix. So any new listing that's added right now will have the new school boundaries inserted automatically.
Okay.
We are waiting for the existing active listings that were added before the boundary changes, and we're going to be updating those as well in the next 2 weeks.
Okay, great. So is there anything else that we should be aware of that's coming in Matrix?
Some of the other things we're working on, one is called reverse prospecting.
Okay.
You could think of it kind of as the opposite of auto notification. So instead of buyers receiving listings that meet their criteria, it allows a listing agent to go in and search for buyer's agents that have clients with the matching auto search that matches the listing of that listing agent. So then they can reach out to that agent, say, hey, I've got a listing and I see you have a buyer that, is looking for this type of listing. Maybe you missed this one, or you're interested.
Sure. Yeah.
So the listing agent is never presented with the buyer's agent's client's information, no contact information. They only know that there's a buyer's agent that has a client that's looking for a similar property.
Sure. That's great, though. It allows the listing agent to be a lot more proactive instead of just waiting to see.
Exactly.
Yeah, absolutely. Anything else?
Yeah, I'd say there's some tools that we're developing that allow agents inside of Matrix to share their listings on social media.
Okay.
And some new driving directions tools that our in-house department has built. Okay. So both of these functionalities will be added probably in the next 3 to 4 weeks as well. And then down the line, we're working at, it's called Matrix 360 is the term that CoreLogic is using for the next upgrade to Matrix.
Okay.
And what that will do is incorporate all of the realist information into Matrix itself. So when you're looking for tax information, you don't have to open up realist. And really what that does, realist is the last piece of software that's still on Flash, right? So it doesn't run on the iPad. And so when putting all this tax information into the MLS system, we'll have, it all be in one system. It'll all be accessible on a mobile device straight from within Matrix.
A lot more streamlined.
Exactly, a lot more streamlined.
Okay, great. Let me see if we had any questions from our members that are watching live right now. And let's see. So I think this was in reference to the, let's see more there. So somebody, Denise actually said, not all agents attach the seller's disclosure when they're listing.
That is true. I mean, obviously we encourage them to upload the seller's disclosure. The MLS advisory group actually looked at making that a requirement, and there was some good discussion in that meeting. However, they did not make it required for a few facts. I mean, one being that the law does not require a seller to provide that disclosure until a contract is submitted or until they enter into a contract. So there may be times where it's difficult for the listing agent to actually obtain that seller's disclosure from the seller. So they did not want to require them to hold their listing out until that happened. So again, so we did not make a requirement for the seller's disclosure, but we certainly encourage them to put that on, and we're going to continue to do that and try to make it easier for them to upload it as well.
A couple people are excited about reverse prospecting on here. Ram said that's awesome news. Deanna said that's great news. Juliana said, can you keep, so this is in reference to the team profiles that are coming, can you keep your individual profile and have a team profile?
Absolutely. So yes, you'll have the team lead will still have their own profile, and so will the team members. When you add a listing to Matrix, you'll have an opportunity to add the team name into that listing, and so then it would be displayed on listings as well. So if you have a listing, say a team member has a listing and it's on hr.com, it will display the team name on their, in the profile as well.
Oh, great, great. Barbara asked if the bond information is up to date.
It should be up to date, yes, the bond information.
Yeah, I think that was updated earlier this year.
Right.
Yeah. So let me just double check. I don't see any other questions, but if you do have a question, go ahead and type it in and we'll ask Shawn.
I would say there's some other things that we're working on. I mean, agents sometimes don't realize that, Matrix and hr.com are really two different platforms.
Right.
And especially the hr.com mobile apps. One of the things we're trying to do with Matrix that we couldn't do with Tempo is a little bit tighter integration with those two platforms. And so that when you have a contact on your hr.com app, there would be bi-directional sync with Matrix. When you pull up your contacts, they would pull up the contacts in Matrix, and same with saved searches. So we're not there yet, but that's something over the next year that we're trying to work on so that these two platforms really do interact seamlessly.
Yeah, I mean, we plan for Matrix to be our platform for quite some time, right? So it's much integration between HAR products and, CoreLogic's.
It will be, and again, I mean, a lot of the things we've developed over the last 10 or 15 years were to complement and supplement Tempo because it was an older system and we couldn't get some of those changes made, and we're going to continue that with Matrix as well.
Absolutely. Okay, well, I don't see any other questions coming through. So we're going to go ahead and wrap it up. Thank you, Shawn, so much for being here with us today. Like I said, I will provide the links that Shawn mentioned in today's session in the caption, and I'll put them in the comments as well, so you'll have direct links to both of those. And you can take a look at the stuff that he asked you to take a look at for flooding and all of that good stuff. So thank you again for joining us this morning. We will be back next week, same time, same place, so we'll see you then. Bye-bye.